following program is brought to you by your friends at Podcast One.
Right now, save 60% off absolutely everything at Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory at our biggest sale of the year. That's right, 60% off everything in stores and online. Save on adult sweaters from $14.99 and 40% off clearance at Gap Factory stores. And at Banana Republic Factory stores, clearance is 50% off and tops start at $14.99. Hurry! Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.
Welcome to RJ Bell's Dream Preview. Weekly winners from his Wise Guy Roundtable. Broadcasting from the pregame.com studios in Las Vegas. Here is RJ Bell.
College football edition, Thanksgiving week. Oh, what a show we got with my Wise Guy Roundtable. To my right, Brad Powers. Right in front of me, Ken Thomson. To my left, back by popular demand, Steve Fezzik. I'm RJ Bell. Guys, we're not only got a ton of great info for you, but we're going to put it in the best possible format to make sure you can enjoy it. We are going in reverse chronological order. Saturday games, then Friday games, then the one Thursday game. That way, if you're listening ahead of time before Thursday, like you should be, if you want to be a good wannabe wise guy, then you get to listen to the whole thing. And if you're listening late, well, you'll know when to stop. And right in the middle, three best bets, smart money, pros versus Joes, a big crossfire. They almost got into it before the show started. But first, the way we always start it, it's Brad Powers versus the world. Brad does his power ratings. Best in the business, in my opinion. When I was on Colin Cowherd last week and we were talking about the top 10 and really going into a deep dive, Brad was the main driver in those rankings, and rightfully so from the Vegas perspective. And then we let Ken, we let Fez, we let the AP say, Brad, you're wrong about this team. First game and the first team that people think Brad's wrong about is Washington. Washington's at home, laying 9, hosting Washington State. And Ken, you disagree with one of these power ratings.
Yeah, I disagree with Washington. I just don't think this team is very good. I mean, they're usually...
So let's no, my fault, Ken. Let's get the context. Brad, where do you have Washington?
I have number 12.
What just generally, Ken, where do you think they are?
Around 20.
All right, go. Why?
Okay, reason being this team just is not as powerful at home as they've been in years past. I mean, they're usually very dominant up in Seattle, even when they do struggle on the road. But when you look at a couple of the road games, I mean, non-existent offense down in Arizona State, lose that game 13-7. You figure they're going to rebound, especially with their backs against the wall. And after tasting the playoff last year, they know what they needed to do to get back there. Just can't do it. And as good a coach as Peterson is, just don't feel the consistency. They lost a couple players early, and they've had trouble with Victor, their middle linebacker, who's suspended now and is a key part of their defense. I just don't think this team right now is playing very well. They're very fortunate that they beat Utah. They stole this game this past Saturday. As 18-point favorites, they win the game by 3. And, again, a very fraudulent Washington team with a very soft non-conference schedule.
All right, Brad, response.
I might have them slightly overrated, although I'll say this. I have them, actually lower than the rest of the marketplace. I mean, my pure power rating said play against Washington last week in their game against Utah, proved correct. And even this week, it says, hey, Washington probably should be laying 7.5 or 8 points against Washington State. The line actually is 9.5. So actually my power ratings are lower on Washington than the rest of the market. So I'm going to stand pat a little bit here.
All right. So let's think about the way, doesn't mean they're right? But it is interesting. If the market is saying one thing, Brad, you're saying Washington is not quite as good as the market thinks. And Ken, you're saying, I think Washington is even worse than that.
Yes, no doubt about it. I mean, it's a team, again, that we look at because last year they did make it to the playoff, and here they are. They had their tougher games at home this year, and they'll close it out in the Apple Cup this Saturday at home, and I think they're in a lot of trouble in this game.
And so you actually like this game. And, guys, just to give you, for first-time listeners, and because of your wonderful support, the long-time listeners sharing, turning their friends on, I'm getting so many tweets of people saying, I've got 20 people. This was my favorite. I got 20 people in my dorm listening. Millennials for the Dream Preview. Like, get them young. I love it, right? But get them young as in let's get them betting more like a pro and a better chance to win for sure if you bet like a pro. But the way we do it is every one of our experts has to lean or like. Lean is just a smidge of an opinion. Like is liking it, clearly liking it. And then there's one best bet, one total, one pass. So lean, smidge, like, much, much more clearly liking. Ken, you like Washington State?
I do like Washington State because I think the defense, despite losing their middle linebacker, Pelor, who's really the anchor of that defense outside of Hercules Mataafa, and he's the big defensive lineman. That is the main reason that I'm going with Wazoo, because I think that he's going to be able to kind of hold his own along with the defensive line in the trenches, get pressure on Browning, and I'm not as concerned with Washington State stopping a guy like Browning taking off out of the pocket as I was with, say, a Khalil Tate when they got beat down in Arizona. So I really think that Washington State, they know what's at stake. They know they got pummeled last year in this Apple Cup game that had just as much meaning for them, a chance to get to the Pac-12 championship game and have a rematch against USC. They're going to be focused, and I think they're going to hold their own in the trenches, where last year I didn't feel that would happen. They've got the skill position players, no doubt about it, and they've got the better quarterback, I think, this year in Falk. I think he's playing better ball than Browning is, and that's because Browning doesn't have the weapons like Ross that he had last year.
All right, so, Brad, you actually lean Washington State, and it makes sense, right? You're saying the market has them a little overrated. Ken's saying you've got him way overrated, so he likes it. So it seems like that this is almost a power ratings play for both of you. Maybe if there's anything, tell us about the situation, any trends, anything other than the pure value of the teams.
Well, let's talk about situation, and that's why I lean with Washington State here. They're coming off a late season bye, so a great time to get a bye right before your rival in an all-important game win, and you're in the Pac-12 title game. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Washington's off back-to-back physical games down to the wire against Stanford, and also last week where they had to kick a field goal on the final play of the game to beat a physical Utah team. So situational edge for Washington State. But this is why I only lean and not like Washington State. I look at the last two meetings between these two, total mismatch. I mean, a combined score of 90-27, that's a hell of a lot of ground to make up in just 1 year's time. And I wonder if Chris Peterson's got Leach figured out.
All right, so we've got lean Washington State, Brad. Like Washington State, Ken. They are +9 at Washington U. Fez, on the NFL, you're like the steak. You're the sizzle and the steak in the NFL. In college, we put a little shake. You're like one of those garlic and pepper combinations that you put a little shake on. You got any info to shake for us?
Yeah, we're going to lean to Washington State. I think this is all about Washington all year long. They went to the Final Four last year, and so they're at the top of the rankings to start the year, higher than they should have been, and the market refuses to believe that they're nowhere close and don't belong in the top 10 this year.
I can think of some NFL teams like that, to be honest. All right, Notre Dame, Stanford, game 2. This is where Fez steps up and says, you've got Stanford overrated. Brad, let's set the context. Where do you have Stanford?
I have Stanford power rated as my number 17 team in the country.
Number 17. Fez, where do they belong?
22nd.
Not much of a mistake. Make your case.
I'm down on the whole Pac-12. I just think I agreed with Ken that Washington was overrated. I haven't seen anything from these schools that impresses me. Bryce Love is arguably the most important running back that I've seen in 5 years. He's playing with 2 bum ankles right now. He's still pretty darn good with it, but nothing compared to how he was the first half of the year. And I don't think that the marketplace has reflected that enough, that key injury to their what would have been their Heisman Trophy contending running back.
All right, so Brad, let's address Stanford's rating first.
Yeah, I mean, as far as whether I agree or I'm going to stand pat, I'm going to stand pat with my Stanford power rating. It's been pretty much in line with the marketplace. I agree with you. It's been I've been slightly higher than the marketplace. Maybe it's not fully accounting for Bryce Love being 80% instead of 100%. But, I mean, it's a team that still, particularly at home, still gets the job done. I mean, they play a top 10 Washington team. And when they're a home underdog, and that's going to come into this week, they're 8-0 against the spread with 7 outright upsets. The last 8 times they've been a home underdog. So I think they get a little extra juice here, and that's why I didn't drop them so much after last week's performance.
Okay, so let's segue into the game itself. Stanford at home, a 2-point dog to Notre Dame. Notre Dame road favor. Brad, you like?
I like Stanford here, and I'm going to give you 2 opposite trends that favor Stanford here. On one side, you have a Notre Dame team that's 0-8 the last 8 times They played a top 20 team on the road. Average loss 13 points per game.
Now, is that straight up or
that's
ATS?
Straight up.
What's the ATS?
ATS is like 4-4 against the number.
Okay.
So I mentioned. Well, here's why I bring up straight up, because they're favored. RJ,
don't want to lose that vig.
Oh well, I'm kidding, but they're favored here. So
but that's an interesting. I wish we had more time. This would be a deep dive, because in some regard, what you're saying makes sense to me. Fez, I want you to jump in as much as you can here. As in, well, wait a minute. If they always win in this spot and they're in this spot getting points, that's good, right? That makes some sense. On the other hand, every one of those 8 games accounted for how good the teams were. The fact, and any situation, injuries, travel, whatever, the fact that they're 4-4 means they exceeded expectations 4 times, they fell short 4 times. So now, is this really a good trend, or is this just a rare case where they're only a road favorite in such a spot, right? So how do you balance that? Because like Mark Lawrence does a lot of that. Like, oh, this team has only lost 1 game by more than 21 in the last 5 years, and they're getting 22. It's like, okay, but how good were those other teams? So it seems like there's 2 levels to this, Fez. How do you account for it?
Well, one, I always look at it against the spread. That's the trend.
If you have a choice, obviously, that's going to be the more dominant consideration. I think we all agree to that.
And then second, and I do this as well to make my trends look better, but why are we dating mining 8 games? Why not go back 20 games? Wouldn't that be more significant?
But let's narrow this, because this could be a whole podcast, right? Because there's a lot of debates about arbitrary endpoints, which is what you're bringing up, saying why this arbitrary endpoint. It's simple. We think there's something here, and I don't know about this case, but when I say, 16-0, so last week with the Saints, there was a trend. It said when the Saints are at home and they have a winning record, 17-2-1 against the spread. Now, 20 feels like a nice round number, so it didn't seem so arbitrary, but it was arbitrary because the one before that was a loss. So it's 17-2-1. Why am I doing that? Because I'm saying I think there's some logic here. If all you're doing is saying the number needs to speak and there's no logic, I agree with you that if you just arbitrarily, especially with small numbers, 8-0, 8-1, it doesn't mean much, right? And there's a bunch of websites out there that have thousands of trends. If the line's between Pick'em and 3 and the sunset in the west, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in that. But if you've got logic behind it, and then you can encapsulate it by saying, well, in this period, look how well the logic's being applied. Now, perhaps in the period before that, it wasn't as applied as well. But now the debate becomes, well, how applicable is the time before that? Because as much as you're saying, I hope facetiously, nothing's changed about Notre Dame, well, a lot has changed. I think at minimum in college, you can't really have trends unless you believe they're institutional, meaning that there's something about the program. Now, you might want to make that case because of the premium on Notre Dame, and we could debate that, but generally there's not many institutional trends. I think you can only go back to the coach at best, right? When you switch coaches, I mean, Brad, you're more of a college guy, and Ken, you too. Where do you feel where's the sweetest spot for trends?
Coaches. I mean, as far as how far are you talking? How far to go back? I usually don't go back to coaches. I mean, very rarely is it an institutional thing unless it's, like, an Alabama who hasn't been a dog or something. But again, that goes back to the coach.
Yeah, I think rivalries can have an institutional element.
Yeah.
I think home field advantage can have an institutional element.
I agree with that, Coach. That's a great point. And just like with the Saints, I think you could go back for every game that Drew Brees has started, for example.
Yeah. I think in the NFL, I think coaches, I think quarterbacks can be a factor for sure. Right? If somehow Belichick retired next year, or probably more likely if Brady retired next year, not that he's going to, would the old Brady-Belichick trends apply because Belichick still left? Probably, right? But as closely? No. Ken, how do you handle college trends?
First off, RJ, I'm totally different. I'm not a real fan of trends because when teams change, when skill position players change, I think it's totally different. When someone says, yeah, this college team's been doing this for 8 years, great. None of those guys are there. So I got to take each game every single week. That's what I do, RJ.
I would say half the handicappers are like you. They don't like trends at all. To close this, I would make one point about Fez's point. If this trend was about 50.5 or 51%, and it's because we think there's a premium on Notre Dame, so I look to play Notre Dame's opponent or pass because I don't want to have to. Because people might say, what's 1 point? Well, think about it. Break even is 52.5. It's 52.38. Let's call it 52.5. So to go from 51 to 52.5 means your handicap has to make up 1.5 points, or 1.5 percentage points, I guess would be the best way to say it. If you're going from 49, you've got to make 3.5 percentage points up. So if you have a situation that is truthfully and fundamentally a 49% situation, you have more than double the effort to find something specific about this game to make it worth betting. So that kind of trend, I think you go back as long as Notre Dame was a public team, which has been time immemorial, as Tony Soprano would say, and others. In this trend, and let's double back, what do we think we're saying here?
Well, I'm saying that Notre Dame, the noose gets around their neck, and I've seen this is a coach thing, and this is the last 5 years that they're 0-8, and they just don't make it. They've been there. They've been ahead, I would say, in 5 of those 8 games, been ahead in the fourth quarter, and they can't make a play or a stop on defense, or they have a turnover in the red zone on offense. They just don't win these big games. So that's why I think it's pertinent. They don't make a play.
I like it. It's good. I mean, it's logical. Here's a new rule, though. Dream. I wish I had some music. Let's see.
Trust me, he's a Notre Dame fan, so he knows because he suffered through a lot of those.
All right. So I wish I had something that meant like something important was happening. I'll go with this. I'm not sure if it. Nah, that doesn't work. All right. New rule. Here it is. Any trend that anyone presents, you lead off with the logic behind it. Now, if the numbers are gigantic, and you want to bring in, hey, I don't know why this is happening, guys. Let's talk about it. But, boy, look at these numbers. No problem with that either. But I think Fez is making a good point. Arbitrary endpoints are especially egregious if we don't have logic behind them. Last thing, Fez.
Yeah, I lean to Stanford in the game, and it's because I think most of the time when a team plays Notre Dame, hey, they've had that game circled for a month. This is the biggest game. That's why Notre Dame struggles against the spread. Well, Stanford just had to play both the Washington schools, Washington State, and then the rival Cal, 3 close games, and Notre Dame took a game off. They were flat as a pancake against Navy, so the situational spot favors the Irish.
All right, so just to be clear, you misspoke. Just plain, you said you lean Stanford, but you lean Notre Dame.
I lean Notre Dame.
The whole thing you said was about leaning Notre Dame, but you just misspoke at the beginning. All right, so we got Brad likes Stanford, and we actually stopped you in the middle of multiple trends. Right. But why don't we do this? Let's get Ken's leaner like, and then you can wrap it up.
I'm going to lean towards Stanford. It's a home game. Look, I know Love is banged up, but like Fez said, at 80%, Love is still better than most guys at 100%. And again, it's a Notre Dame team that right now, talk about the Dream Crusher, they're reeling. They're just a team that really thought they were going to the Final Four, and now they're just playing out a string. And it's a bigger game for Stanford because they can get some momentum and have an opportunity to go into the Pac-12 championship game against USC if they get some help from Washington. And both those games will be going on simultaneously, so they will not be too distracted. They'll be playing their game, but I'm sure you'll hear in the crowd what's going on in the Washington State game.
All right, so Brad, you had the 0-8 straight up against AP top 20 teams on the road for Notre Dame, and you had a second trend.
And how about 8-0 against the spread with 7 outright upsets? That being Stanford as a disrespected home underdog.
So when you say home underdog, you just mean there's no special category.
No special, just home underdog, and it goes back to when Harbaugh got things going here in right around 2009 with this program. They've only been on average less than 1 game per year as a home underdog. And not only do they cover the spread every single time, but they win, 7 out of 8 outright. So they have a little, and David Shaw's the type of coach, just like Harbaugh, a little bit chip on his shoulder, a little feisty with the media sometimes. So I think that they just take it as disrespect.
Able to keep the team believing.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've been talking about that with Herman. If you have a home dog or any dog, if you can keep your team believing, almost the old Hoosiers. How tall is that hoop? Oh,
I love it.
10 feet, huh? Same as our hoop back in Hickory.
I love that. Go. Great scene.
Great movie.
Yes.
That actually is a good, it's a kind of a cliche now to talk about how good Hoosiers is, but Mean Gene Hackman is probably one of the 10 best actors of the last 50 years.
You can speak better on that than me, but I would agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, well, anyone that loves movies, real quick aside here, I'll say 2 things. One of the best 5 movies of this century, The Royal Tannenbaums. And it's a lot of you might not have heard of it. Great movie, though, by a guy, last name Anderson. And recently, in fact, it's out there now, The Florida Project. The Florida Project. If you like The Wire, think season 4 of The Wire and think of the kids, but the kids are only 6 years old in a project in Florida. I got to tell you, one of the best movies of the last 10 years. I was blown away. It's out right now, The Florida Project.
We got our own Florida Project with State and the Gators later on.
Ken's like, let's not mess around with anything but games, baby. Next game. Oh, we thought we had a little contention so far. Well, there's a little more coming. Let's hold Brad to account is what I'm calling this one. Oh, by the way, the AP disagreement against Brad, which we do every week, the Associated Press, and that's a great representative of teams that are overrated because the AP is a square public poll. We love the AP, but we are the official odds provider to the Associated Press, but their poll's a little square. I think we can agree. That's part of Fez's best bet. So that's going to be an interesting debate there for sure. Fez is a little feisty today. You notice that, Brad?
Yeah. I think it was that Mountain Dew he was drinking before.
What is it? Was it Mountain Dew? Was it what?
Well, pop in a couple Mountain Dews, little sleep deprivation, ready to rumble.
You ever do 747s from 7-Eleven, the caffeine pills?
The only 747 I know is like the one-man gang trying to squash the Macho Man with the big 747 splash.
You know what's funny? Fez's only pop culture references, 80s. Not just the 80s, it's only pro wrestling in the 80s. It's like he never saw any movies. He's
got a couple movies.
No,
but it's the most random line from the most random movie.
He's like, in the world according to Garp. No, Ron Williams.
Rain Man.
3 O'Clock High was one of the greatest movies ever.
There you go. All right, this game, Wisconsin, is his holding Brad account. Minnesota, Wisconsin's by 17. Brad, we're going to start here we were on Fox National Radio, shows on from 11 Pacific to midnight every Friday, 10 Pacific to midnight every Saturday. We need an extra hour to both recap college and preview the NFL. And Wisconsin covers the spread against Michigan. All the wise guys betting Michigan went from Michigan plus 10 to plus 7. And I'm thinking, okay, finally a little respect for Wisconsin. You're like, oh, I might downgrade them from this game. I might downgrade them. Now, you've had a few days. Do you have any change of heart?
No, there's no need to downgrade. If you look,
so you're not downgrading them.
No, not downgrading.
But you're not upgrading.
Not upgrading.
I want to just say, as a Big Ten alum, thank you for an undefeated team beating Michigan and covering didn't result in a downgrade. Thank you.
Your beef shouldn't be with me. It should be with the marketplace because I produce my weekly projected computer lines, which are just basically pure power ratings each week. Last week, they said they should beat Michigan by 10. That was the opening line of the week. The Sharps, including myself, actually went against those power ratings and bet it down to 6. So I'm not the problem. My power ratings are right in line.
It got bet down to 6?
Down to like 6.5 in some spots, right through 7 even.
Okay, so here's my question. Is if the market, because this is like the third or fourth time you're mentioning the market.
Okay.
If the market is correct, and that is like the arbiter of all this, then how do you ever lay 110 against the market?
That's a good call. But there is, well, I'm just saying, you got me. Yeah, I just fold them. You got to know when to fold them.
I didn't even have time to go to this. Yeah. See, I got to give Brad credit. If you give up, I'm just moving on. Good point.
I just think all my biggest bets personally tend to be early in the week before very, very big line moves. Now, sometimes the public will move a line and you'll get good value at post, but my best bet's oftentimes Sunday night, Monday morning.
Yeah, which is saying you'd rather bet against odds makers. I mean, the basic premise is if you bet early. So Brad does a great job. He's one of about a dozen guys in the world that goes down to the win on Sunday afternoon, 5p?
3p Pacific.
Okay. And Johnny puts up the world or the Vegas openers, and he has what, a 2-down limit?
Yep.
And you're banging those, you're tweeting those out at Brad Power 7. You can see these, and you're winning big down there with the against the win.
I am. I wish my premium picks were winning as well as that, but still.
But if you're laying 110 against Johnny Avello, we respect him. It's easier than laying 110 against the world. So
absolutely.
I do agree with Fez. The market isn't perfect, but the market is a lot more or a lot sharper late, closer to kickoff than it is in general.
Just like
earlier.
It'd be easier for you to beat Johnny Avello in a heads-up poker match than to have to play like Durr combined with Ivy consulting together heads up.
Yeah, so where your analogy would be wrong, if I had to beat multiple people, it wouldn't be a good analogy. But if they were all kind of conspiring and had collective IQ, you're right. Okay, so you're sticking by this Wisconsin team. Where do you have them in your power ratings?
I have them number 8 in my power ratings.
All right. So you think against the Buckeyes, for example, they would be what? On a neutral?
About a 6.5, 7-point underdog.
Now, real quick, and then we're going to get to Ken on this. And Ken, you've been sitting back patiently. I know you got a ton of great info, so thank you. Now, Wisconsin was favored. Let's just call it 7 for a round number. Home field for Wisconsin is what?
At least 4.
All right. So they're saying Wisconsin's 3 points better than Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. 4 plus 3 is 7. All right. Now, Ohio State is now what at Michigan?
11.5.
Which is saying they're 14.5 points better if we give Michigan. Let's just make it 14 just to keep it simple.
Yep.
All right. So doesn't that mean that Ohio State would be 11 against Wisconsin?
I think, everyone's going to disagree with me. My Ohio State power rating's too high. It looks like my Ohio State power rating's too low.
Or maybe there's value on Michigan. We're going to see.
And that's kind of a preview. I do think that. I do think that way.
All right, Ken, leaner like in this game. Wisconsin is 17 at Minnesota.
Yeah, I just think it's too many points. And again, people say, well, look, Minnesota's got nothing to play for. PJ Fleck's team has really fallen apart. Outside of the rout at home a couple weeks ago against Nebraska, they're just not playing well. And you come off getting beat down by Northwestern 39-0. I mean, just one of those games that you want to just throw the film at. And I think that'll be the attitude going into the game. They'll get refocused. It's the home finale. And they know that they have an opportunity to knock off an undefeated Wisconsin team. They do play for this Paul Bunyan axe, and I know it may not mean anything to us, but to those kids, it's a tradition. So I think that there's an opportunity for Minnesota to get up for the game. 17's a lot of points on the road. I'm going to lean Minnesota in this game.
When I was just out of school, Ken, I don't know, I graduated from the Ohio State University.
Yes, you did.
And
well, at least that's what you tell us.
That's what I tell us. Well, the New York Times did confirm that. But but the big debate was I valedictorian or first in my class? That was the big debate by a site we won't mention, soon to be out of business, I'm sure. We've got, I'm just gagging. I mean, it's not like I predict too well or anything. Fez, we've got minute. Oh, I was going to tell that quick story though. There was 3 guys that were seniors in high school. So I came back for the summer after I graduated, and my best buddy's brother was one of those guys. So we hung out all summer golfing, playing tennis. I mean, it was like we were running around 10 hours a day, and we came up with like a special trophy. We played golf, tennis, and then basketball. And it was whoever won 2 of the 3. We had the same 2 teams. And I tell you, I think it was 1-1 when we played the basketball. And it was I can't even remember maybe it was just like the title of the triathlete champion or something. And that last basketball game, it was like elbows going. So yeah, if this is your rival, it might not matter to us, but obviously it matters to these kids, right?
And Brad was telling me, and we talked about it earlier, the pressure that is mounted on Wisconsin to make it through unscathed in the regular season because they can ill afford to slip up. Even if they were to lose this game and then beat Ohio State in the championship game, they still may not get in. They have to be unblemished in order to have an opportunity to get to that playoff.
And that's interesting. If they won by like 1 here and they beat Ohio State I think they still get.
No,
you're right.
Lost,
they have to win.
If they lose this
I don't think style points matter for Wisconsin, but I think they have to win.
Exactly.
Leaner like Fest.
I lean Minnesota. It really is all about the total in this game. The total's 43. The average college football total later in the year, it increases throughout the year. It's more like 57. So
it increases throughout the year.
Oh, yes.
As the weather gets worse.
Yes.
So what's the factor that makes it increase?
Defenses, players get banged up. Really hard to play defense, takes more effort. So scoring tends to just continue to rise throughout the year.
Could it also be that whatever synergies you need on offense are greater, like the sense of rhythm and all the things that come with extended time together helps offenses more too? I
think it does, and I think the coaching staff becomes aware, hey, throwing the ball is more effective than running, and you see more passing.
And then they forget that, though, at the end of the year or the start of next year.
They do. They always. If you start out in a September game, it's amazing how often the first drive run, pass,
but maybe
punt.
Maybe it's part of the idea that we don't feel comfortable with all the timing and everything that goes with the passing.
Sure. Getting back to the key point here, though, because the total's 43, they're basically only playing 3 quarters. So let's assume Ohio State and Wisconsin were equivalent teams, which they're not, of course. But even if they were, Ohio State should be a bigger favorite against Minnesota because that total is going to be much higher than this total. They're going to get more plays and more of an opportunity to pull away. There won't be as much of an opportunity.
And the size of a total is both the efficiency of the offense, but also the pace. It seems like you're talking more the pace of the game.
I'm just saying if they played to 57, then this spread should be 21, but they're only playing to 43. Basically, the game's going to end when there's 43 points is the projection.
That's a good call. And both these teams run the ball. That's what they do. That's their MO. They both run, keeps the clock going. Outside of getting those first downs to remark the ball, that clock's going to keep going. That's why the total's 43.
All right, so lean Minnesota Ken, lean Minnesota Fez, Brad Powers.
I lean with Wisconsin here, and here's why. I just think Wisconsin's a bad matchup physically for Minnesota. I look at the two most comparable opponents to Wisconsin that they played this year. That's be Michigan and Michigan State as far as philosophically, defense and offense being very physical. I mean, they got outrushed by more than 500 combined yards in those 2 games. So if Michigan and Michigan State are doing that to Minnesota, then I think an even more physical Wisconsin team should, I get it. They're going to be conservative, but I think even that conservative play is just going to grind it out, just what Northwestern did in Minnesota last week. So I lean with the Badgers.
I find that so fascinating, the idea of comps, right? Comparables, like in a house. And in the NFL, not as much because the teams play in such a similar fashion. Though obviously there's some variation, but in college there's such variation. Defining those comps, you haven't really talked about that this year. Is that a key for you?
One of them, it's not a big one, but when you need a lean and you can't pass on 2 games, I
actually think there's a lot to it.
But I agree with that.
To explore. I mean, in a way, that's what we're doing with the whole idea of option teams and that, right? That is an extreme variation. Next game, a public pounder means the public's on one side. In this case, they're on Georgia. 92% of the bets, 99% of the money so far. We're taping Tuesday here in Las Vegas at the pregame.com offices. And we've got Georgia favored by 11 at Georgia Tech. Ken, you like this game?
I do. I like Georgia Tech. I'm going to go the other way. And look, I respect Georgia. I think they're a solid team. There's no doubt they still have a chance to get to the playoff. But I know a lot of guys that played at Georgia, from Kevin Butler to Scott Brownholtz, a lot of guys that played in this game. And they said it is a weird matchup. And when we're playing at Georgia Tech, it is one of the toughest games for us because we're going against an option that we don't get to see, and all of a sudden we're closing out. It's a non-conference game, and this team, no matter what their record is, they're still able to step up and beat us. And if they do beat Georgia, even if Georgia wins the SEC, there's an outside shot that they may not get in. I know it's crazy to say.
I would say that's an interesting point. I think if Georgia loses here and wins the SEC, I think they're probably underdogs to get in, I would say.
Yeah, it just depends on how things go elsewhere. But this Georgia Tech matchup, and they've got 2 good ones. Marshall runs it well, and Benson's an outstanding running back. And Georgia's, they were sluggish against Kentucky. I had the over in that game, and it took a while to get over. But Kentucky was right in there and dropped a couple passes. They could have made that a 1-possession game down the stretch, and that was between the hedges. This is at Georgia Tech. This rivalry game is big, and when you're given double digits, you better be careful.
And I think this is a good time to mention it. Ken has his radio show here in Las Vegas, 5 days a week, 7 Pacific to 9 on KDON. It's a 50,000-watt station at night, goes to multiple states. It's been around for many, many years, very popular. And Ken, I think the thing that differentiates you beyond you as a person, your depth of knowledge with the players, but your show is you've got so many announcers that come on, former players. You like to get that kind of on the field type perspective. And I think there's a lot to learn from that. So good show. Check it out. All right, Brad, we have a like from Ken, Georgia Tech. Lean or like?
We have a lean here with Georgia Tech for me, and it goes down to series history. You're exactly right. Georgia Tech gets up more for this game than Georgia. Each of the last 4 meetings, all decided by a touchdown or less. I worry about the spot here for Georgia. They do have the SEC championship game on deck. Now, Georgia Tech.
Really? Let's think about this a second. When the SEC championship, so they control their own destiny. Yeah. That's what I think we all agree. If Georgia wins out, they're in. What's your odds? And I know there's a lot of permutations. If Georgia loses here and wins next week, what's your guess on the chance of Georgia making the playoffs?
35 or 40%.
So the idea of if you lose,
and it does depend on who they play. If they play Auburn, a 2-loss Auburn team, as opposed to an undefeated Alabama team.
No, there's a lot of permutations. But how couldn't Georgia be max motivated here?
Well, I think they're motivated. I'm not saying that they're going to be flat or anything. I just think Georgia Tech is max motivated because they got to win or their season's done.
So this is like going up to 11, right?
I think Georgia Tech's 11 and Georgia's 9.5 or 10.
All right. Go ahead.
And, let's get into why I think Georgia Tech's max motivated. It's just simple. They got to win or their season's done. I mean, they're 5-6, got to win to get to a bowl. They're playing against Big Brother. They played very well against Big Brother the last 4 seasons. All the games have been decided by a touchdown or less. They beat them outright a couple of times, including last year. I think it's a bad matchup for Georgia, playing the option in the final game of the year.
All right, Brad, lean Georgia Tech. Ken, lean Georgia Tech. Fez.
Lean Georgia Tech. It's their home run game. It's all in for them. And, yeah, Georgia can talk about how they're all in as well. They've got to be looking ahead. They never win their conference, and that's a distraction. Georgia Tech lean.
Next game, pros versus Joes. What does this mean? It means the pros are on one side, Joes are on the other. Why is this important? It's because when the Joes are opposite the pros, they create resistance to the line move that the pros naturally cause with their big bets, and thus if you want to play the sharp side, you're able to play it at a better price oftentimes. Florida State, Florida State is -5 on the road. That is the public side. The Joes on Florida State, the Sharps, and I lean Florida. So the Sharps in Florida +5 on Florida Sharps. Now, let's see what the boys think. And actually, Ken, you've got an over-under on this. We're going to go last with you. Brad Powers, Sharps on Florida, lean or like?
I lean with Florida State. I lean with the Joes here.
So you lean?
Lean, not like.
Okay.
Let's get that clear. Yeah, lean with the Seminoles. Look, they need to win out to get to a bowl. Florida season's done here. And you can make the case, well, this is the home run game for Florida, knowing that this is their last game of the season. I just think Florida State's the more trustworthy team. I go back to maybe hidden value. 2 weeks ago, they should have covered against, I'll give you the tip of the cap, they should have easily covered against Clemson. They haven't quite given up on the season. They blow out an FCS team last week, do their business. I think they are motivated to win their last 2 games and get the extra 15 practices for a bowl.
Yeah, Brad and I did a crossfire, which, by the way, next game, we got a crossfire coming up. And I thought I won the crossfire, but somehow I didn't cover. Since I had the Browns last week, though, I'm starting to relate. I would have been 3-0 if it weren't for those Browns. Poison. All right, Faz. Before we get the total on this game, Ken's only total, lean or like, are you sharp or square? Florida. Now, let's just repeat. Florida State is square. Florida is sharp.
I lean to the square side, Florida State. I'm laying the 5 here. Maybe I'm just being stubborn because they look like they could beat Clemson, and yet they couldn't even cover 16.5 when Clemson punches in a 12-yard run with 32 seconds remaining on the second to last play of the game.
You didn't even mention that, Brad.
Oh, it was bad.
They made.
I said hidden value.
They were getting 16.5 and driving with 7 minutes to play in that game. The key here, I think, is that they rescheduled. They had a game that was eliminated because of the hurricane that came through. So they have no chance to make the bowl. They rescheduled the punching bag to play their 12th game so that after they win this game, they can win another game and get bowl eligible. It's a clear sign that the entire team wants to go to a bowl.
How cool is that as if they win this game and then lose to UL Monroe?
Which was a nice winner.
Which was a best bet for me.
Now, by the way, guys, it's amazing we're this far in the show without mentioning this. Probably the best performance I've ever seen from a round table. I mean, we can think about, there's a certain time where we shuffle up the cards and say it's actionable from here. Did we lose a game after that?
I think maybe one game on the Dream Pop. Of course, someone pointed out that one game.
Well, I've got a ton. I mean, over 100 tweets of people showing us little 3-teamers. And when I say little, $10 to win 50 or whatever. And just listen, guys, we're going to have times. Here's the trick. If you hit 55%, you're going to win a lot. You're going to lose a lot. You're just going to win a little bit more. But it is fun. It is fun when that 55% goes 8-1 or whatever. So kudos to the round table. I had nothing to do with it. All right, Ken, last thing on this Florida State game. You've got your one and only total amongst all the big games.
Yeah, and I got to go under 44. Both these offenses have been so inept all year long. It's really, like my dad used to say, it's like watching paint dry. And it's tough, man. I mean, no matter who's going, whether it's Blackman, I don't care if Florida goes with Zaire or Franks. it's just pathetic to watch these two teams try and go up and down the field and score and get in the end zone. I just think it's going to be a very physical game. Both teams, again, know a lot of these kids know each other for a long time, so you're going to get their best effort. But I just think the best effort is going to be on the defensive side of the ball, not the offensive side of the ball.
And here's what I would say is in a game that's bet heavily like this, and obviously this isn't a banner year in the Bender home for Florida State and Florida.
That's a great one. Here's a carton of Marlboro Reds. Smoke up, Johnny. That's awesome.
Oh, we finally got Ken to do a little.
Hey, that's a Judd. You get in, he's getting into breakfast.
Did you relate to Judd?
Oh yeah, he's a total Jersey guy, man. You kidding me?
I like the Ali Sheedy in that. I'm that demented.
There you go. Yeah, I could see you, man, hanging out with the goth fans.
Oh yeah,
there's
a lot of truth in that back in the day.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons all over it. I could see you.
Let's be no Dungeons and Dragons. No? You're insane.
I could see it.
Listen to him trying to cut on me.
Fezzik's sorry.
The Fez is pointing at us.
Fezzik's like 20 levels up already.
Hey, we're talking geek stuff. The Dungeons and Dragons goes my way. I played it.
But I will say this. Take this for what it's worth. I won't be crude in any way. But if a girl is willing to stick an earring through her nose, she's probably pretty open-minded. Right?
Good call.
I'm just putting it out there.
Can't disagree.
I'm just putting it out there. All right. And I enjoy open-minded people just in any endeavor. So under. Now, here's my question, Fez. Am I right in thinking, hey, this is a public game and, more so than, obviously a lot of games on the schedule. It is Florida State. You're going to get more public action, a little bias towards the over, a lot of tendency of the pedigree of these teams having scored in the past. Because really Ken's handicap didn't sway me because I didn't hear why there was a mispricing. I heard why there'd be low scoring, but I'm thinking, well, wouldn't everyone know that? And does 44 account for that? And do you think there's a value here? Do you think cause maybe a premium on scoring with these sexy teams or what?
I think there may well be some value because Florida has had some higher scoring games. The Michigan
that
game
were deceiving.
Yeah,
that's a great
Remember
point.
That 33-17 game where there was 21 points due to defensive scores. Florida should have gotten 3 in that game. So I think
which would have stuck in people's minds.
So there's been value all year long with Florida as inept as they are. And let's face it, Blackman getting screamed at by his coach. He's about ready to just lose his mind.
And both teams are off probably their best offensive performances of the season. I mean, someone sees a Florida State score last week.
Recency bias.
Recency bias.
I love it. See, there you go. That's great stuff. Next game. It's crossfire time. I love it. Who's going? It's Brad Powers in the blue jeans and Ken Thomson in the very tight compression short.
The USC tank top. Come on, baby.
The theater of the mind. All right. We've got, and this is the game. We got Auburn. We got Alabama. Auburn, Alabama. Right now, we're taping Tuesday. Alabama -4.5. Now, there's smart money on this game, but I'm not going to announce the smart money till the very end. Matty Holt, as always, giving us the smart money reports. Ken, since you talked about the Breakfast Club and came out of your shell, I'm going to let you go first in this game.
All right, here you go. I mean, this is a typical Big Brother game, and I've got the better coach. Look, I like Gus Malzahn and his offensive innovation from years ago. It's not been there the last several years. Right now, all their eggs are in Kerryon Johnson's basket, and if he doesn't produce, that puts pressure on Stidham. Stidham's got 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Not bad, 4-to-1 ratio. You'll take that. But they've given up 67 tackles for loss. Bama, they have 75 tackles for loss. They've only given up 42. You're going to see Evans and Davis create havoc, put Stidham probably on his wallet a couple times after they slow down Kerryon Johnson. I think Bama just too physical despite losing linebackers. They have the depth on the defensive line. I think they control the trenches there in Auburn the way that Georgia could not. And I just think Bama's going to wear them down, and Bama's going to win this game by more than 7.
That was professional. Professional presentation. Ken Thomson likes Bama. Brad Powers?
Well, I like Auburn, and let me help Ken first before I crush his argument. As far as, you got a point there, and that would be my number one concern, and I do have an Auburn ticket already, is can they hold up? Because they didn't against Clemson. They allowed 11 sacks. and he got pressured against LSU, and Stidham was 9 out of 26 for that game. That is my number one concern. But here's why I like Auburn. I don't think Alabama, really, when I think about it, are they really that good this year? Let's see. Florida State, that was a 10-7 ball game in the fourth quarter. Florida State fumbles a couple of punts, and their quarterback goes down. Okay, then they win at 24-7. Florida State, it goes down, and they're a terrible team. They get outgained by LSU at home. They're getting dominated at the line of scrimmage on the road against Mississippi State. Only beat Texas A&M, by 8 points on the road. This is the first legitimate top 10 team they're playing this year, and they're playing them on the road. And I think Auburn's not like everyone else in the conference where they're afraid of Alabama. This is a team that's beaten Alabama 2 of the last 6 times. And they're the only ones in the conference that have had success against Alabama. So, to me, pure power ratings, I think it should be 3.5. I'm going to take the extra point of value. I like the Auburn Tigers here.
Here's the other thing. I've got the better running tandem. I've got 2 guys. You've got 1. You got Kerryon Johnson. I've got Damian Harris.
Only one football.
And Bo Scarborough. I've got 2 guys where one's always going to be fresh, where you're going to have to wonder, can Kerryon Johnson, can he keep up the sustainment against a great defense like Alabama? I've got the better coach. There's no doubt about it. And I don't have the cowbells in my ears.
That's why you're laying 4.5
I don't
on the
have
road.
the cowbells in my ears left and right like I did in Starkville in that tough game. And I was on Mississippi State in that game. So this is totally different. It's inside the state of Bama. Who owns that state? Alabama. Every 4 or 5 years,
Auburn.
Every 4 or 5 years, Auburn comes up and they're relevant, but very few and far between.
And they're relevant this year.
And they are relevant. They got their win at home against Georgia. They will come back to earth. They will be eliminated from the playoff contention. Bama will roll. It's a better defense. 75 tackles for loss. Stidham, too slow to get out of his own way. Where Jalen Hurts, although he doesn't throw the ball well, will take off and run. You combine him with Harrison Scarborough, it's a Bama day, baby. Make your money.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
All right. Good stuff. I mean, this is a lot of vigor. Is that
Ben Kingsley?
No, that's Ringo Starr.
Oh,
it's great. It's an old Howard Stern drop. Ringo, about 10 years ago, he gets on his website with a little webcam and he says, as of August 23rd, I will send no more mail back. Do not send. I say this with peace and love. It's great. All right. So here's my question, Ken.
All right.
No, actually, I'm going to ask Brad a question. Who has Auburn beat? Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
Before they beat Georgia, what did you think of Auburn? Who'd you like in that Georgia-Auburn game?
I liked Auburn.
You liked them. So make the case other than the Georgia game for Auburn being good?
Well, I thought that, as far as that game, they lost the coin flip game against LSU.
The game they lost is how good they are.
Well, I mean, I saw them, Mississippi State, a team that owned Alabama just 2 weeks ago. What did Auburn do to Mississippi State?
Where was the game?
49-10.
Where was the game?
So under that theory,
where was the game?
That makes up a 20-point difference.
It's a huge difference.
Hold on. So who just beat Iowa this week?
Who just beat Iowa? Purdue.
Yeah. So Purdue's better than Ohio State?
No.
So come on, guys.
Well,
I can't. That isn't the story. If they beat a team, that's great. They played well against Mississippi State, but let's not say because Mississippi State played well against Alabama.
I'm looking at this matchup, and this matchup is a bad one for Stidham, the quarterback.
You've had your say. Now, fans, I get it. 1 second, I'm asking him a question. Everyone's raising their hand. So, how's Auburn good? Because what I'm going back to is Joel Klatt before the Georgia game said this is not a good team. Joel Klatt knows a lot more college football than I do. You guys are, in my opinion, a lot of people would disagree, on the same level. Tell me why Joel Klatt was wrong. Well, explain to me the win. Show me where. Or is it one game?
It mainly is one game.
All right.
But that game was as impressive as any win any team's ever had
Agreed.
This year.
But how impressive was Iowa over Ohio State? Was that more impressive than Iowa over Ohio State? That's the most impressive win of the year.
Agreed.
Forget what the spread was. To beat the Buckeyes that badly, that's the most impressive win of the year.
I would agree with that, but the turnovers played a part. Turnovers didn't play a part in the Auburn-Georgia game. That's just pure domination.
So, to me, I think we're right at both teams. I'm not sure we know how good Alabama is. I don't think we know how good Auburn is. But I tell you this, the pedigree tells me, the recruiting charts tell me this Alabama team is better than they've played. I am giving Ken the win. Fez, who do you like?
I'm going to pass the game, but I'm going to give Ken the win also, and here's why.
Ooh. Brad looks mad, actually.
No, I'm good.
And I actually wrote down lean Auburn, but here's why. Brad, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Westgate, and they had the Game of the Year line, and it was 10. And I was looking for you to come in and obviously take Auburn plus 10, but you didn't take it, and I didn't take it. So it couldn't have been that wrong if it just sat there. But let's say maybe it should have been 9 at that time with perfect information. Then Auburn plays that great game against Georgia. All right, let's move it 2 points. That's a huge adjustment. One game, we'll knock it down to 7. And then Alabama plays a bad game against Mississippi State. Another huge adjustment. 2 full points for one game. We'll bring that line down to 5. Well, last week, Alabama rolled against a cupcake, but Auburn really struggled in the first half against a bad team.
I expected it, though.
We both
doesn't mean it doesn't mean that they're not
Okay.
good. It doesn't.
My point is that line.
It's Brad's world, or so he's pulling all the strings.
So I made 2 insane 2-point adjustments twice for games, and now you know what? I'm not even going to move the number for a terrible Auburn first half effort. I still get 5 for my adjusted number, which says 4.5 is still cheap, and that's only making absolutely favorable adjustments in your direction on all 3 of those games.
Listen, great. And listen, this is why they have chocolate and vanilla ice cream. I mean, this is why the bookies get rich, and even the sharpest batters have to work their paws off to win. You know, this actually segues, and we're going to our next game in a second, is the Buckeyes. I have gotten more hate on Twitter for saying I was on the herd last week, and I told Colin, and Brad helped me think this through before the spot, is if Alabama wins out, right, obviously involving winning here like you think they will, and Alabama beats Georgia, and Ohio State wins out, beating Michigan, that seems like a foregone conclusion, and Wisconsin, the Buckeyes are almost in where I can't see the scenario. The only scenario anyone's coming back with, other than, oh, you're stupid, and then, you know, you can't reply why 1,000 times, so you just ignore it, is they're saying, oh, a one-loss Miami team. Okay, so Miami loses to Clemson in the championship game in this hypothetical, and the ACC is going to get 2 teams when Miami's second best win is Virginia Tech, which is comparable to Ohio State's 4th best win, Michigan State, in this hypothetical, assuming a win against Michigan and Wisconsin. So does that bother you? Your hate, your disdain, your illogical hate, really, for Ohio State, does it cause you to be ambivalent about Bama rolling here?
No, not at all. I don't even think about that. This is has nothing to do.
Out of my mind.
Has nothing to do with if I had to worry about every playoff scenario over the last 3 weeks, I wouldn't get any work done because it's changed night and day. I remember sitting here 4 weeks ago where we all thought Miami was crap, and now they're undefeated.
That's true. It's true.
Okay?
Now let me ask you this: if Bama wins out, Buckeyes win out, should the Buckeyes be in?
It's got to depend on what happens elsewhere. I mean, what happens if
what scenario shouldn't they be in?
If they tied with Oklahoma as a 2-loss team because they lost head-to-head in Columbus to Oklahoma.
So you're saying if this is interesting. You're saying if Oklahoma, now this assumption is Oklahoma wins out, we don't, because if Oklahoma loses, there's going to be 2 spots. So really that comparison doesn't mean very much because I think Oklahoma and the Buckeyes probably make it there. The question then would be Miami of Florida versus Oklahoma, I think more. And it wouldn't be as much head-to-head. But let's say Oklahoma wins out.
What happens if Alabama wins out? Georgia has 1 loss now, right?
Or they would have 2.
They would have 2. So say they lose to Bama by a field goal in the SEC championship game.
No way do you lose in the SEC championship.
Why not? They lost to Alabama a couple of years ago by a very low score. They had a chance to win it inside. They were inside the 5-yard line at the end.
If they gave 2 SEC teams with one with 2 loss over the Big Ten champion 2-loss team, there'd be a riot.
Well, there would be, but we also know that TCU and other teams got screwed a couple of years ago, and there was a riot.
But there's not enough people that care about TCU to riot.
And the committee would be biased towards putting Ohio State in and leaving Georgia out on top of it, and Ohio State would be more deserving anyways. There'd be no chance.
I agree. I think Buckeyes are a lock if Bama wins out and they win out. A lock. What do you think?
Totally agree. Absolute lock. Slam dunk.
Great crossfire, guys. Just to recap, Brad likes Auburn. Ken likes Alabama. Oh, by the way, the smart money on that. Now, I'm going to read this quote from Matty Holt. Quote, unquote, early sharp action on Auburn, but not from the sharpest of the sharps. So, that's like half a vote. Next game. Oh, this is before we get to our double likes. We got a double like coming up next, best bets. And then we segue into the Friday, Saturday games. This is Fez's derivative bet. We're going to do this last, though. We're going to do lean or like on the game. West Virginia, Oklahoma. Oklahoma at home, favored by 22. Lean or like Brad?
I lean with Oklahoma here, and I don't think adjustment has been made enough for the absence of Will Grier, the West Virginia quarterback. I think he's, as far as MVP, is important to a team as far as line, top 10 player in the country. We saw him last week. It's very misleading. He is going into the end zone to go up on Texas, breaks his finger, loses the ball. They don't even score. It's a touchback. After that, their offense can't do anything. It's one of the first times all year we've seen a West Virginia offense be inept. So I think the backup is a significant downgrade, at least a touchdown in my eyes. Looks like the market's only downgrading West Virginia here, maybe 3 or 4 points when it should be a lot more. That's why I lean with Oklahoma.
Lean Oklahoma from Brad Powers. Ken Thomson.
Same thing. I've just got to lean Oklahoma. And here's the thing. They've got Baker Mayfield, who got himself in some more hot water, but he's not going to start the game, the Heisman front runner. But Kyler Murray's stepping in there. This guy's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country come next year. So not a big drop-off there. And who knows how long Murray stays in there. He may lead Oklahoma on a touchdown drive, and Mayfield may have to sit on the sidelines a little longer than he anticipates. West Virginia, a shell of itself without Grier. Grier is the team. He's what makes that team go. It's like taking, one of the it's like, I don't know, maybe taking Dobbins out of your backfield there for Ohio State. Maybe that's not even a great analogy.
No, it's not.
Okay, give me a guy that if you take from the team that they're just nothing, like a Sam Darnold from
Francois,
USC.
Sam Darnold,
Josh Rosen, the guys like that. There you go.
Good stuff. So lean Oklahoma from both the college football experts. Fezzik, derivative bets. We talk about this in the NFL. And by the way, Fez and I, NFL this week, and we talk derivatives a bunch, which is first halves, team totals. Fez, as good as he is at handicapping the NFL, finding the best way to get exposure on his opinion is, I can tell you, I'm guessing you bet the Browns on first downs, right?
Lost by half.
You did lose still. Oh, I'm happy. I didn't see
Thanks, RJ.
I'm just thinking you were smart again going with the Browns.
One more first down. They're driving 4 plays, they don't get the last first down.
Kaiser. Oh, my God, is he bad? All right. What's your derivative bet?
Derivative bet's going to be the first quarter under 14.5. Here's what's going to happen.
So is that number out there as of Tuesday?
No, but the total 68.5, and what's going to happen, the odds makers, RJ, have to set college basketball lines, NBA lines, football lines. It's Thanksgiving week. They're just going to look at that total 68.5. That translates to 14.5. Even if they were sharp and they make it 14 and they reflect a little bit that Baker Mayfield is going to sit 1 or 2 series, I still love this bet. If you're Oklahoma and you're in the top 4, are you going to put your backup quarterback, even if he's extremely talented, and start zinging the ball all over the place and risk interceptions? No, you're going to run it right down their throat and establish the pace of the game to let's just get this drive over with, and then we'll get Baker in the game eventually here, end of the first quarter. West Virginia, Brad said it best, Grier is the entire team. They have a backup quarterback. How is this team going to score early? Both of them extremely conservative. Oklahoma in the first quarter under 14.5.
Makes sense to me.
I just want to get in Kyler Murray just so you understand how good this kid is. 16 of 19, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's just tip of the iceberg, and he's one of the fastest guys in the country.
I think his ceiling's better than Baker Mayfield.
Now, what's fascinating is I think West Virginia with a new quarterback is going to be conservative also in the first quarter. You would think. Let him get his feet. So if the 14.5's out there, I like that a good bit. Guys, listen, if you want to bet more like a pro, hey, it's easy. Listen to the Dream Preview. If you want to bet like a pro, it's that kind of thing that Fez does. And I think as well as anyone in the world at that stuff. Next game, this is where we get actionable. These are all just clear, like, hey, if you want to follow the boys, the stakes are going up. Double like Clemson, South Carolina. Actually, I did the wrong thing for that. The stakes are going up. Should be this. Wait. Cards shuffled. Stakes are going up. That one's for pregame. I'll do it again. And by the way, if you want to go to pregame.com, check out the Game Center. There it is. All right. So we've got Ken Thomson likes this game and Brad Powers likes this game. This is Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson on the road, favored by 14. Ken, who do you like?
I like South Carolina at home in Columbia. I think it's going to be a festive atmosphere, of course, when you play your rival Clemson. And again, it's a Clemson offense that is still predicated on Kelly Bryant being able to throw the ball, because South Carolina is going to slow down the run. Etienne and Feast are very solid. And South Carolina, you got to look at Muschamp up there for Coach of the Year. I mean, this guy This team's 8-3. Are you kidding me? This team was probably picked to go 4-8 during the season, and they lost two great players in Dowdell and Samuel in Games 7 and Games 3, and still they continue to move forward. Good, solid running game. Clock will keep going. I respect Clemson's defense, but I just think 14 points too many to give the home team. Again, it's going to be just a great game to watch, and I think South Carolina, if they keep it close, may have a chance to win this one at the end.
All right, so Ken likes South Carolina, and it's a double like. Brad?
Yeah, I like South Carolina here as well. You know, I get why the numbers guys don't like South Carolina. They're 8-3, but they're getting outgained on the season. But they do a lot of the little things right that winning teams do each and every year. And this is the second year, they've exceeded what their stats say under Will Muschamp. They don't turn it over. They play bend but don't break defense, so they don't give up a lot of points. And speaking of giving up a lot of points, they did last year to Clemson. They got truckload, 56-7. So I think they fully remember that one. All out maximum effort for South Carolina. And even if they get down in the game, what is Clemson's motivation in the second half? Probably get a little conservative because they got the all-important game against Miami on deck for the ACC championship game. So I'm leaning with the Gamecocks here plus the points. Liking the Gamecocks.
Double like. Faz, you lean.
May I call an audible and go up to like, RJ?
No way.
No way. Well, I wrote down
we already
lean.
promoted the double like.
But
you can say that in your heart, in your mind, you like it.
In my ears, I like what the other two gentlemen have just said.
Now, what did they say? Honestly, what did they say that you didn't consider?
Just how much the favorite Clemson would be looking ahead to Miami. And that's got to be all their motivation. They want to give anything away in this game, and because of that, they could get up.
But if they lose this game, that Miami game doesn't matter.
But when they get up 14, South Carolina becomes the monster favorite to win the fourth quarter.
Okay, it's just, to me, if this line were 24, but it's like, we're going to try hard. Like, we want to win more than any game this year, as much as any game this year, but we're not going to win by more than 14.
Can't get anyone hurt in the fourth quarter.
I hear you.
Too
I'm not saying that, but this effect would be much greater if it was 24, right?
Absolutely.
All right, good stuff, guys. Double like on South Carolina plus 2 touchdowns. Lines moved, backing you guys up. It opened 16. All right, so we're going to best bets, but let's slow down a second because I've got an offer we've never made before. If you've listened even just this week, you know how sharp Ken and Brad are. And last week was their dream week when it came, dream week on the dream preview when it came to just dominating. So we talked about it. They're feeling it. We're hitting the key part of the season, the home stretch. And we've got an offer that we've really never made before, not just this year, but ever. We're offering Brad Powers college football the rest of the season. Every premium pick. So on the Dream Preview, we go over the biggest games, but there's so many other games that we don't even go over. When Brad picks amongst all them, obviously there's potentially and oftentimes even better picks. And Ken Thomson, every pick from now through the end of the season, including up to the BCS, or not the BCS, the college playoffs. So every game, bowls included, you can get either one of them for $195. Every pick. It's a great value. Or you can get both of them for just $100 more. So $295, everything from Ken, everything from Brad. Now that by itself is a great deal. But steak knives, no, not steak knives. It's even better. If whatever package you buy doesn't profit, so that counts the VIG, the juice, the dastardly juice, you get 100% of what you paid back in pregame dollars. So, which means you can spend those same dollars again. So you spend $195 on Ken. Somehow the ball just bounces against him. You lose. Obviously, we're all upset. I bet a lot of Ken's games. I'm going to be upset, but you get that money back. It's guaranteed. And we don't guarantee we guarantee games of the year, and that's it. No other individual games. Because I'll tell you, with an individual game, it can be deceiving. Imagine there's a lot of, I'm not going to name any names, a lot of places guarantee all their games. They just double the price and guarantee them, right? So half the time you win, half the time you lose, and you're paying the same, but you have this perception that you've got some edge because you're guaranteed. To guarantee 1 or 2 games a year, you can't, there's no perception like that. The guys are saying, if I don't win, I don't get paid. That takes guts. This takes even more guts, which is if I don't profit for you, I don't get paid. And I can promise you, if I don't get paid, they don't get paid. So it's an opportunity. Listen, if you're not, you're betting 20 a game, you shouldn't even consider this because it's just not enough money. But if you're betting any real amount and you appreciate these guys, one or the other or both, and it's guaranteed, it's a good price and it's guaranteed, hard to beat that. By the way, we also have a coupon. Ken, by the way, I got to talk to you about something real quick. There was one guy on Twitter. Did you see this guy?
I didn't see it.
He went wild. He goes, Ken was right. You were lying last week. Blah, blah, blah.
Nice.
Nice.
No, I'm glad my brother got the message.
I banned him from listening to the pod. No, I didn't ban him. But last week, I didn't think you guys stepped up enough with sharing and all that. So I didn't take away the coupon, but I kept it at the same level. And the one guy was mad. Everyone else kind of said, you're right, RJ. We should probably do more. Well, we had a big uptick last week, guys. So we're giving you the coupon also, and you can use it on this deal. Imagine that. Or any individual pick. CFB Dream 15. That's up $1 from last week. Why is it up $1? Because you're tweeting out the link to this. You're sharing it. You're telling your friends. And it makes a difference. It really does. And it makes us feel good. I mean, let's be honest. To know you guys love the show allows us to put not only more money, but more passion into it. CFB Dream 15. That's capital C, capital F, capital B, all one word, the word dream, the number 1, the number 5. And by the way, obviously these games for Thanksgiving are starting. You can use them Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But if you want Ken and Brad, you might as well jump there and get it early, that all access, because then you'll get their Thursday and Friday games also. Check that out. Just go to pregame.com, click buy picks, click either Ken or Brad, and you can get them individually, or you can get the combo, which is discounted, and it's all guaranteed. And for those that use pregame dollars to buy this, we will also give you pregame dollars back. So it's any cash you spend or any pregame dollars you spend, because those dollars are like cash at pregame. Best bet time.
Don't know about the future, that's anybody's guess. Ain't no good reason for getting all depressed. Fire up your pad and pencil, I give you a piece of my mind.
All right, Fez, best bet time.
Best bet 154, Michigan plus 12 against the Buckeyes. The Ohio State Buckeyes are a great bully. When they're playing Maryland, they will pound a team like that and open it up and win by 40. But like most bullies, if they get a fairly aggressive, confident opponent with some ability, they'll punch back, and then Ohio State folds like a cheap suit. We all know about Iowa this year.
So Iowa is the intense, powerful guy that can fight back.
When they're home, they're a decent program. Let's go back to 2016.
So they're not like a bully beater.
Let's look at the pattern of bully beaters. At Wisconsin, definitely a team that doesn't stand for being bullied. Wisconsin covers, and these are the two most damning games for Ohio State. At Penn State, they're laying 17. Lose outright.
So we're talking last year.
And also at Michigan State, same thing. They're laying 17 points. They barely get out of there alive. I've not seen this team look at the playoffs against Clemson when they're away from home and they face opposition.
Hold on a second. Michigan State, what was the score this year?
7. Oh, he's talking about last year's game with 17.
So last year's Michigan State game
on the road.
On the road is the key.
When
this team faces a top 40 or better team on the road, they absolutely are paralyzed. They just are completely.
So last year when they beat Oklahoma,
that's the aberration.
And when they won the national title,
that was 2 years ago.
So this trend started last year.
Talk about your data mining. Yes, but they're losing outright as 17-point favorites here. They're not coming close.
You want to start over? We never stopped the tape, but do you just want to do it again?
No, and look at the game last year. Michigan, they were home against Michigan, and it took a faulty call, in my opinion, to give them the straight-up win. They really had lost that game, not converting a fourth down that was given to them.
Listen, I'm not sure I disagree with the pick because, Brad, I asked you about this line maybe 2 weeks ago, and you said like 6, right? If I remember,
I did 6 or 7. I thought it would go up a couple points.
What's your power rating say?
Right now, it has like Ohio State 8, 9. I thought there'd be a downgrade because Michigan's not going to have their quarterback. You said what? Their number 3 quarterback they don't have. It is a downgrade going from Peters to O'Korn. The market says it's a significant downgrade. This is a pure power ratings play for me on Michigan. That's why I agree with him.
By the way, we teased ahead. this is the AP disagreement, which is kind of interesting in this conversation. So it's about the Buckeyes. You've got the Buckeyes
number 3 and
behind Alabama and
slightly behind Oklahoma. We're talking maybe on a neutral.
Okay, fair enough. All right, and where does AP have Ohio State?
They have number 8. And I'll be honest with you, the big-time disagreement, I mean, I'm thinking the market has Ohio State as the clear number 2 team in the country as far as the lines go, because even on my power rankings, even though there's a big disagreement between me and the AP, my power rankings still say Michigan's the pure play here.
Ken, I have a thought, but I'm going to wait for Ken. Now, try not to be biased.
I am not going to be biased. I'm passing this game
because
I thought this line was right where it should be. I think Ohio State has enough offense to cover this number if they get off to a good start and can kind of get the crowd a little bit uneasy. If Michigan can get some momentum like they did, early on in the middle of the game against Wisconsin, they'll be at home. The Big House may help keep them in that. Ohio State's offense is much better than Michigan's, and I don't care who's quarterbacking. I don't think Peters is that great. I don't think O'Korn's that great, and Spate wasn't that great either. I think Harbaugh missed out on finding a quarterback. I really don't think any of these guys are going to be worth a darn, but I think Ohio State has too many weapons and too much speed for Michigan.
Pretty good. I tell you, Ken's getting better at this.
Liking Ohio State?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That's why I passed.
Yeah.
The one thing about Ohio State, you brought up a great point with the Oklahoma game. They boat raced Oklahoma, so they never faced any adversity. You blinked and they're up 14
They won
points.
too easily. Okay, got it. That makes sense.
And this could happen too. If Michigan gets down 14-0, then Ohio State could just roll them.
So you're saying your best bet will lose if Michigan gets down 14-0. Otherwise, clear sailing.
But it's highly unlikely that's going to happen with that great Michigan defense.
That's great.
Here's what I'll say is I think we're almost saying, like, I wonder why this lunch place is serving chili today. I wonder if it's because it's under 40 or if it's Wednesday. Like, you're just trying to find, like, you've seen Ohio State not win every game. Like, somehow that's our focus. That in the last 5 years, they've lost like 7 games. So we're identifying the games they've lost. And we're saying, what's the reoccurring theme here? Could it be the road? Well, no, because Oklahoma, but maybe the road, but they don't get up big. Or it's like, come on.
That's their only good game is the win at Oklahoma, and that was week 1, which is always.
Except if we go back to the one when they won the national title.
You want to go back 2 years. The last 2 years, they are massively underperforming against the spread on the road.
Fair enough. Or could it be? And I think in this, again, Ken knows a lot more. All you guys actually know more college than I do, even the Buckeyes. I think the Buckeyes are like any other team full of 5-star recruits that doesn't have Nick Saban, which is like the Steelers. If the motivation isn't, first of all, they got beat by Clemson because they just got beat last year. Clemson was the better team. I don't think that now once they got punched in the mouth, the Buckeyes didn't respond too well because they're not used to it. It's like a guy that's never been beat up before. Once he's on the ground, it's tough, right? But otherwise, it's usually times where Ohio State's motivation is questionable, where they really lay an egg. And against Iowa, they lost to Oklahoma. Let's give Oklahoma credit. They just played the better game. But the idea of it just being on the road, they've played some amazingly good road games.
They're way too conservative. All the games I watched on the road, when the game's tied in the third quarter, how many quarterback draws can you run on 3rd and 6, RJ?
So you're now saying Urban Meyer needs your help.
He's way too conservative. He does not open it up. You watch all their games.
If only Urban Meyer understood your game theory, he'd be successful in life.
The highest winning percentage of any college coach since Frank Leahy, since World War II. Needs your help.
You got to love the confidence.
I do. And I agree in this instance. I'm with you, Fez.
Best bet, Michigan, plus 11.5 right now. Well, Fez somehow is plus 12, on his sheet, of course.
No hurry to bet that. Might go higher.
Okay. So, hey, guys, we got 2 best bets left. Okay, before we go to the next best bet, and we're going to do both the best bets, which are actually now the next 2 are Friday games, and then we're going to do the rest of the big Friday TV games, and then the one Thursday game. So we've got some good info to come. Fez, though, listen, why don't you let's see if you're confident or not, because you don't ever like taking the worst of it, why don't you stand proud and say, I'm betting Michigan straight up against you. And here's what we'll do. We'll put a money line on it. In a way, if I win, you can take me to, let's say, a $20 tight place. a plate for lunch. And if you win, I'll take you like to a $60 type place for lunch.
That, sir, is a bet. Michigan outplayed Wisconsin for 2.5
You
quarters.
don't have, listen. You don't have to redo your handicap. It wasn't good the first time.
It's a bet.
Next best bet, we've got Brad Powers, Virginia Tech, Virginia. Best bet.
Yeah, and I'm taking the home underdog here, Virginia, and I think that there's a massive mispricing because of what happened last week involving both of these teams. I'll start it off with Virginia Tech. This is a team that absolutely should have lost outright at home to Pittsburgh. It's a Virginia Tech team that's fading. They get crushed by Miami, wrong on them there. They lose outright on the road against Georgia Tech. And then last week, Pittsburgh, down 6, has four chances at the 1-yard line at the end of the game, can't punch it in. Virginia Tech still doesn't cover. On the flip side, loved Virginia against Miami last week. They delivered. They're up 28-14. Game should have been really close. They get outscored 30-0, another pick 6. So I think Virginia's a little bit better than the scoreboard reflected last week. Virginia Tech, worse than the scoreboard reflected, should have lost outright. Two teams going in opposite directions. Give me the home underdog in a rivalry game plus the touchdown.
Plus the touchdown. Virginia, open table, agree, disagree. Who's got the strongest opinion?
Go ahead,
I like Virginia. Brad nailed it, and also second year under Bronco Mendenhall. What happened at the end of his first year? 52-10 beatdown by the Hokies. It's payback time now.
Yeah, the only reason I lean on Virginia and not like them is because of the way that they lost to Miami. It was a game that could have really, elevated that program even further going into South Beach and getting the win, and they led twice, 2 different times by 14 points, and then gave up the last, 24 or whatever
30.
it was, 30, last 30 in the game.
But,
So
does that potentially give you confidence as a team?
Well, knowing that you went into South Beach and a team that's right now positioned in the playoff that's unbeaten, and you twice led them by 2 touchdowns, they came back at you when you were up 14-0, tied it at 14. You're then going up 28-14. Look, things didn't work out at the end. A couple plays went your way. But, yeah, it gives you confidence because you went in there, went toe-to-toe with somebody that's got a good chance to be in the playoff.
All right, so best bet, Virginia. And by the way, guys, if you're listening and the Friday games have started, you probably still want to listen for the repartee, but we're only doing now Friday and then a 1 Thursday game. That's why we did reverse chronological order. Next game on Friday, this is Ken's best bet, South Florida, Central Florida. Central Florida favored at home by 11.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Scott Frost, he'll be gone, I'm pretty sure. I don't know where he'll be. I don't know if he'll be at Florida or if he'll be at Tennessee or wherever he's going to be, but he'll definitely have an opportunity to go elsewhere unless there's an opportunity for Central Florida to go into one of the bigger conferences and maybe he sticks around. But this is a darn good team, and I think they just have too much for South Florida. In fact, I think South Florida's a little bit fraudulent. They rely too much on Flowers, who's an outstanding athlete, but I saw this team play in a couple games, and I was just not impressed the way I am with Mackenzie Milton, with Adrian Killens, and with Central Florida's overall speed. I just think there's going to be a speed differential. I think this game will be close because, again, a lot of these kids know each other from playing inside the Sunshine State growing up, but I think by the time the second half rolls around, you'll see Central Florida distancing themselves. I think they win this game by 17+, RJ.
So I asked Brad this question. I want to ask you, Alabama, and you can think about it when Brad responds if you don't have an instant answer. Mm-hmm. Alabama, Central Florida on a neutral, like let's say 1 versus. I had someone on Twitter say, "Oh, Central Florida should be in over any 2-loss team." And listen, it matters what the committee's trying to do. If it's trying to pick the best teams, it's not even close. I don't want to give you Brad's number. What would you have Central Florida, Alabama on a neutral?
I would have Alabama 14.5.
You had 16, didn't you, Brad?
18. Yeah, maybe as high as 18 is how I would go.
So, again, it just shows you it's an impressive year, but, relatively. But Central Florida would be favored over Florida State.
And Florida.
Or Florida. Now that you could have gotten a nice payoff on. Brad, you actually lean, but you disagree with Ken.
Yeah, I do. Slight disagreement for me. And to me, you talked about Scott Frost. You opened up your handicap talking about him potentially going to other jobs. And I think that serves as a little bit of a distraction here, especially when you're laying double digits against a motivated rival in South Florida. And you go back and think about Charlie Strong and his at least strength as a head coach. A lot of times it's in the underdog role. Was at Louisville when things were up against it. But I will give you credit here. And here would be my worry and why I don't like South Florida and only lean with them. South Florida hasn't played a single team all season in the top 50 of my current power ratings. They played one top 60 team. Houston Well, guess what? That's their only loss of the season. They lose outright as a 10-point favorite, so that is in your favor, but I do have some slight disagreement with you.
Well, here's the other thing, too, is that it's not just a game to try and play out the string where Central Florida knows they're going to the championship of the American Athletic. If they lose this game, they are not going because they are only a one-game lead over South Florida, and the head-to-head would come into play. They would be eliminated. So they're going to try and not only go unblemished, but also get to that championship game.
Best bet recap.
You got it.
Central
You got
Florida. Brad Powers, Virginia. Steve Fezzik, graduate of Northwestern, sticking his nose in with the big boys of the Big Ten. He has Michigan. Next game, Miami of Florida. Pittsburgh, Miami of Florida -14. Nobody likes this game. Let's do rapid fire here, guys. One topic on each. Fez, I'm starting with you.
Team from Miami gets 3 straight home games in the heat and humidity and has to go to 40 degrees in Pittsburgh, lean pit.
All right, so you think, is that just, I mean, what is it? They're going to be cold? I mean, what's the effect? I get that you have a contrast there. What effect does it have on the field?
Well, the team that's playing in the hot weather hasn't played in that temperature for all year long.
Just being unfamiliar.
Yes, unfamiliarity.
All right. Because if you go to the heat, it can be where it causes fatigue, right? So a cold team going to the unexpected heat is even a bigger deal.
Yeah, the poster child, one year Miami had to play, I think, in a Sun Bowl, and they were just absolutely unable to function.
Okay, Ken, lean or like?
This is a game that I'm going to lean towards Pittsburgh because of the spread being too high, but it's kind of like an Italian mafia movie. Basically, can Danucci save Narduzzi? And I don't know. Narduzzi's on the hot seat right now, the coach for Pittsburgh. Danucci's his quarterback that's going to go, so we'll see if he can bail him out. But I think Pittsburgh's going to hang in there. I think Miami gets the win, but I think it'll be a closer game than people think.
Ken's gotten much more entertaining. I mean, just today, I was going to say
the guns are out, the fun's out, the guns are out.
He came out with, I was going to bust on him when his analysis for liking the dog was, I don't think they're going to win by that much. But then he came up with that quote, and it was like, I can't even bust on him. Brad, lean or like?
I agree with the guys here. Lean on Pittsburgh. And the addition for me is Miami's got the huge game against Clemson on deck with everything. I don't think they're as flat as what they were against Virginia, but I do think if it's in the second half and they're up 17, I think they start looking towards next week. And we haven't seen any quit from Pittsburgh so far this season.
So let me ask a question, Brad, and if you need a second, pull out your power ratings. Is if Miami and Ohio State play this week on a neutral, what's your power rating say?
Power ratings say the Buckeyes be favored by about 6.
So doesn't mean that's what matters, but because it is about how well you've played this year, not how good you are, which is two different things, right? A team could lose 4 straight coin flips against 4 great teams and be, 8-4 and literally be the best team in the country. I mean, it just wins and losses have a strong correlation to how good you are, but when they're coin flips, and strength of schedule and such. Next game, Navy, Houston at home favored by 4.5. Fez, you like this game?
Yeah, I like Houston. I went back. I know they get a bye week, Navy does, but that game against Army is so important to Navy. And I questioned, well, how does Navy do the week in the game before they play Army? Turns out they're 1-5 against the spread, and they failed to cover by 56 total aggregate points against the spread, which makes a lot of sense to me. Then they're always looking ahead to their big matchup against Army.
All right, like Houston -4.5 here. Brad, you pass this game. You got one factor for us?
Yeah, passing, I'll give you one on top of Fez's handicap for why you should maybe lean towards Houston. They just faced the option in Tulane last week. Now, they lost the game outright, but they did hold Tulane in check to 20 points, and they had a bye prior to Tulane, so you've had a bye, played the option, and now you're playing the option again. Defense says they can hold Navy in check here.
I like that. Ken, lean or like?
Same thing there. I'm going to lean towards Houston. I just like the third string quarterback, Derek King. He's a guy that's rushing the ball real well. Gives him a guy that does it a little different than the other 2 quarterbacks. He just doesn't wing it around the field. He rushed for 141 yards in that loss to Tulane. So again, or in the game with Tulane, it was a win, 20-17?
No, they actually lost outright, 20-17. Yep.
But still, I mean, again, a team that I'm not high on. It's a team that's totally different from the team that came here to Las Vegas Bowl last year. And it seems like ever since that game that they lost to San Diego State, this team's kind of regressed a little bit. There were high hopes for this team. They had the transfer Allen, the quarterback, coming over from Texas A&M, and there was a lot of optimism for Houston to win the American Athletic. Instead, now they're playing Navy for second. The winner of this game actually wins second place in the western half of the American Athletic.
3 games left, guys, and woo-wee, as they say. We got a sharp money game on the next to last Friday game. We've got a sharp money double like game next on Friday, and then the Thursday standalone game. That's the 3 that's left. Let's rock it through them. We've got Texas Tech, Texas. Texas at home, favored by 10. Sharp money, and I agree with this on Texas Tech. Texas Tech plus the 10. What are you laughing at, Brad?
Nothing.
Plus the 10. And this is straight from Matty Holt, CG Technology. Brad actually has a total on this game. We're going to hold on for that. We're going to talk about the side. So let's get this straight. Texas Tech is the sharp side. Ken, lean or like?
I lean towards Texas.
Okay. Just a lean, though.
Just a lean.
Any analysis?
I just like Ellinger. I mean, I like the quarterback. He comes back. He's playing at home in Austin, and I just think that Texas Tech showed me all I needed to see from that offense, which was non-existent last week in a 27-3 beatdown against TCU.
You know, Ken's fading a little bit. I think he needs
at
a
home,
cookie.
No less.
I think he needs a cookie. Usually he has he'll give 19 points, and then he's fighting to get the 20th point in. This time he's like, well, I like that quarterback. What's his name?
Ellinger. Yeah. He's a guy that should have beat USC, and I'm an SC fan. I got a first taste of this guy, and I think this kid's clutch. If he didn't get hurt, I think Herman's guys would be right up there challenging in the Big 12. I really like this kid a lot.
All right, so me and the Sharps on Texas Tech. Ken leans Texas. Fez.
Yeah, I lean Texas Tech. I have no idea how they lost by 24 points because the yardage was pretty equal last week, although I will say, Ken, I agree, they were challenged big time offensively. They're playing for Kingsbury, who I believe that they like 5-16. They need the win like blood to get bowl eligible and likely to save Kingsbury's job. And Texas got gifted a win when Greer went out for West Virginia last week. Without him, West Virginia was hopeless.
And do we know the team wants to save his job?
I believe that it's a coach that's liked.
And he's an alum there. I mean, that's his school.
Okay. Good stuff. All right, guys, this is a double like and a sharp money game. This should be.
You don't want to get to my total? Why I like the over? That's okay.
I was thinking about that cookie Ken needed.
Yeah.
I need one too. All right, total. Brad Powers.
Yeah, I like the over here. And let's talk about last week's games. Why did Texas Tech's offense stink last week? They're playing in 30-mile-an-hour winds. You got a pass-happy offense playing in 30-mile-an-hour winds. That's why their scoring was suppressed. And also, a lot of missed scoring opportunities. Missed a couple field goals, throw a pick six. They should have, when you have almost 400 yards, you only score 3 points. That's very misleading. On the flip side, why was the Texas-West Virginia game low scoring? Will Greer, the West Virginia quarterback, gets hurt going into the end zone for a touchdown, fumbles it.
Can I just ask you, how did they gain the 400 yards? Texas Tech. How did they gain it?
Well, I mean, the run.
Well, what makes a team be able to move up and down the field till they get to the red zone and then they can't score? Well, I mean, just explain that.
They're playing a really good defense, and I know you're going to say, well, they're playing a good defense.
You brought the 30-mile-an-hour wind in. In other words, if they can move the 30-mile-an-hour wind till they get in the red zone and then can't score, what happened there? Is it only the wind from the 20 to the end zone? Explain it.
That's a great call. Thank you, Ken. I will concede that point of the handicap. But here's where I'll piggyback off of Fez. I do think the players and if you like Texas Tech, I think there's some correlation here. I think with his job on the line, you're going to get a very creative play calling out of him. I think trick plays, gadget plays, nothing to lose here other than maybe his job. I think they're very loose here, and it wouldn't be surprised they score well into the upper 20s. Texas scores in the 30s here.
All right, and guys, listen, I love this. Because we always talk about this, but it's worth saying. In the old USA Network shows, Mike Warren, Ed the Professor Horowitz. I don't know if this is true, but allegedly he used to stand there and had like a Coke spoon apparently tucked under his thing, and he was in between shoots. He was spooning it in his nose. I don't know, allegedly, right? But those guys would never disagree with each other. These guys, they're like saying, but what about this? What about this? I love it because that means how can you be more genuine, right? And wise guys don't agree all the time, and I love it, and it's so genuine. Fez, quick thought.
I do a radio hit on the Double T, the Texas Tech network, and they're still excited about the
Lubbock,
possibilities
Texas, there's
here.
a network?
The Double T.
They hardly have a Subway sandwich down there. Shop. They have a network?
You gave it to me.
I spent a month in Lubbock one weekend.
And you made it out? That's
I did. I was down there for a wedding. It was interesting. All right. So, Brad, on the over. So you disagree with the over, Ken?
No, I just wanted to get his reasoning.
It was a good point. I'll concede that was a good point.
I didn't know, and I actually didn't see that a lot of that game, so I didn't know. Maybe it was a crosswind from the 20-yard line and in.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Ringo, you rock, baby.
All right, guys, double like that. It's going to get even more fun, or as I like to say, funner, coming up. We've got Missouri favored by 11 at Arkansas. Now, Matty Holt, the vice president of CG Technology, takes the biggest bets in Vegas. He says the sharpest of the sharps, you don't get sharper, are on Arkansas. Now, we do have a double like in this game. And, okay, it's Ken and Fezzik. So the sharps and me are on Arkansas. Who do you like, Ken?
I love Missouri.
Woo-wee. All right. Make your case.
I'll tell you what, this team is playing outstanding ball. They've covered 7 in a row, and they're just moving the ball big time. They're spreading you out, and they're doing it with precise precision, and they're just going right down the field. Locke has been outstanding, and people were about to call for the head of Odom, the coach, who's really struggled. And, in fact, he had a meltdown at a press conference, and it just looked like everything was going wrong. Now, look, their schedule hasn't been the most difficult, but the way that they're moving the ball, and they're going on the road now with confidence. I had them last week as my best bet. They went into Vandy. They pounded Vandy, who was supposedly, built on their defense from Derek Mason, a defensive coach that came over from Stanford. Lo and behold, Missouri's just playing good, solid ball. And look, I like Bielema. He's a Wisconsin guy that, my wife's from the Madison area, and I liked him there, and I thought he was really building something there in Arkansas. But this will be his final game because he's going to get canned, and they're going to get drilled in this game. They're going to lose by 20+.
Okay, so the Sharps, RJ Bell on Arkansas, Ken on Missouri, Fezzik, the 2-time Super Contest champion, only guy ever to do that, 31 years, biggest handicapping contest in the world. You like?
Missouri.
Hey, just be proud of what you are, Fez. I love it. You said it strong. Make your case.
Yeah, what's happening here, the Sharps are wrong because the Sharps are looking at the year-to-date stats of Missouri, and they're looking at those numbers saying Missouri isn't any good, but they're right. Missouri was terrible in September, and all those numbers are getting baked into their season-long stats. Let me give you a stat. The past 5 games for Missouri, I'm going to use 2 numbers, 45 and 21. This team plays in the SEC. They've scored 45 points, all 5 of those games. 21. They've held every one of their opponents to 21 or less. Alabama-esque. It's cheap. Missouri's the right side.
All right. So, Arkansas Sharps, RJ, Squares, or we'll say the other side, Missouri is Ken and Fez. Brad, you have a lean.
I lean with Arkansas here. And
welcome to the Sharp Club, baby.
Yeah. And here's why. I do think the players, and I think even some of the fan base likes Brett Bielema, but they all understand this is his last game. So I think they get an emotional send-off for him. And this is, they're kind of, if you followed them at Arkansas, they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type of team. 1 week they're getting beat by 35. The next week they're pulling a big outright upset. And to me, I think Missouri might be a little overpriced in the marketplace. Let's keep in mind, I'll give you some more stats on Missouri, how dominant they've been. Last 5 games, outscored their opponents by an average of 35 points per game. More impressive to me, average cover the last 5 weeks by 25 points per game. I think the price is a little high here. Your power ratings say that it should be 9 here. I think Arkansas is very emotional. Give me the Razorbacks. Woo pig suey.
All right, good stuff. We got Thursday's lone game is a double like in this game. First, though, guys, we've got the Ken Thomson, Brad Powers season subscriptions at a discount, guaranteed combo price if you want it, even more of a discount. Check that out. But there's a ton of stuff. There's videos, there's radio shows, there's all that. You can follow me on Twitter.
His Twitter handle is at RJ in Vegas.
And this holiday weekend, I'm grinding, baby. So I'll be putting stuff out the entire time at RJ in Vegas. Last game, Mississippi State. Mississippi State at home, favored by 16. Fez, you like?
like the underdog, Mississippi here, and it's all about really the game last year. They got absolutely smashed, blown out as a 10-point favorite. Here's their opportunity to go ahead and circle the wagons in a disappointing year and play their best game of the year. I'll take the dog.
All right, so underdog Mississippi. Brad, you also like Mississippi.
Yeah, I also think they play their best game of the year. I think their interim coach has no shot for a job next year, but I think he's very well liked. An alum, been a longtime assistant coach. Mississippi's actually played decently. Their season win total before their coach was fired, Hugh Freeze, was only 5.5. They've gotten to 5 wins this year, so it's not like that they far underachieved. I've actually been impressed with some of their performances the last 4 or 5 weeks. I think they give an all-out maximum effort, getting more than 2 touchdowns like the Rebels here.
All right, double like Mississippi, and Ken, you lean Mississippi.
Yeah, I'll lean Mississippi. Again, something about Starkville and those cowbells are a little bit crazy, but it is a rivalry game. And again, Ole Miss isn't caring about a 16-point or 15-point spread, whatever it is. They're worried about winning the game so they can become bowl eligible. But Fitzgerald's a real deal. I really like the way this guy mixes it up, and they should have beaten Alabama. They blew the game, but this is one that they want to go 9-3. Impressive year for Dan Mullen and the boys.
Well, I tell you guys, this shows the listeners, if they ever doubt the dedication, 16 games. And there is no breakaway pod because we included everything in the main one. And remember, NFL, Fez and I, with a special guest, doing the exact same thing. You can follow Fez on Twitter at Fezzik Sports, Fezzik, at Fezzik Sports. Follow me. And, hey, don't miss the NFL Dream Preview. Talk to you there.
Thanks for listening to RJ Bell's Dream Preview. Catch the Wise Guy Roundtable each week. College football released on Wednesday, NFL on Thursday. Don't miss any winners. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Visit podcastone.com and download the Podcast One app. Have a question for RJ? You can contact him directly on Twitter at RJ in Vegas. Live the dream with us each week.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on, man?
Hi, Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the team, Loveline, man. You guys remember us from back in the day? Well, we're doing a pod, and we're doing it every day.
And we've been doing it for a while, and if I hear one more time people say, God, I loved you and Adam together on Loveline, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing a podcast. Will you please just join us at the Adam and Dr. Drew Show, please? At AdamandDrDrewShow.com. It's a great show. Come on now. Only on Podcast One. That's us, Adam and Dr. Drew Show. Just like the old days.
Doctor's orders.
Oh, man, you're funny.
Yep. All right, let's go save some babies.
Let's do it.
Right now, save 60% off absolutely everything at Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory at our biggest sale of the year. That's right, 60% off everything in stores and online. Save on adult sweaters from $14.99 and 40% off clearance at Gap Factory stores. And at Banana Republic Factory stores, clearance is 50% off and tops start at $14.99. Hurry! Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.